Disney has been a staple in the movie industry since its first release way back in the 1930s. Since then, the legendary studio has put out some of the most memorable and classic films to ever grace the big screen. With that much history, it's no surprise that fans start to come up with their own conclusions. Movie theories have existed for as long as movies have been around. Fans love to make up absurd links between characters or come up with fantastic unspoken backstories. While none of these are confirmed, these theories all have some level of merit to them. They can't be confirmed, but they also can't be explicitly denied. You're watching The Binger, and here are the 12 wildest Disney theories ranked from odd to awesome. Elsa, Anna, and Tarzan are siblings. According to one of the co-directors of the movie Frozen, the King and Queen of Arendelle were on the boat for long enough to give birth to a little boy before they got shipwrecked. They ended up stranded on an island where they were eaten up by a leopard, and not much else was said about the little boy who was born. We know that the parents were consumed by a wild animal, but there is no mention of the child's fate. Let's assume the kid survived the shipwreck as well and washed up on the same island. Now where have we seen an abandoned kid growing up in the jungle, being raised by animals before? That rings an oddly familiar bell, doesn't it? Hercules and Ariel are related. This one is less of a fan theory and more of a mythology lesson. You see, Hercules is the son of Zeus, the god of lightning and thunder. Now, Zeus's brother is Poseidon, the god of the sea. Poseidon's son is Triton, who happens to be Ariel's father. That makes Hercules and Triton first cousins, and Hercules and Ariel are therefore first cousins once removed. Alice in Wonderland is a crazy drug trip. This one will probably come as no surprise, as it's long been a topic of debate between moviegoers. At face value, the movie is about a young girl who goes down a rabbit hole into a fantastic place of wild adventures. By wild adventures, I mean reality-distorted events that occur after drinking special potions and eating pieces of mushrooms. Perhaps it was those kinds of mushrooms, but they never quite specify. The premise of Alice in Wonderland being a drug-infested journey has shown up on several occasions in pop culture. For instance, the popular Jefferson Airplane song White Rabbit makes several references to the film. The Matrix also gives it a shout-out, claiming that taking the red pill keeps you in Wonderland and shows you how deep the rabbit hole goes. People looking to find a link between the lovable cartoon tale and some psychedelic drug trip have a slew of evidence behind them. However, the original story was written by author Lewis Carroll in 1865. Carroll was not a drug user at all, and this was long before psychedelic drugs became more commonplace in the 1960s and 70s. Frozen and The Shining are the same movie. The Shining, released in 1980, was a critically acclaimed film starring Jack Nicholson. It's about an off-kilter main character who's a danger to their family. Their volatility increases after a long isolation inside a giant, grandiose, high-ceilinged building in a freezing, desolate landscape. There are also supernatural forces at play that tie into the story. Does this sound familiar at all? If you said yes, that's because I also just described Disney's Frozen. While the details may be different, the overall synopsis of both films are eerily similar. Gaston killed Bambi's mother. The death of Bambi's mother in the film Bambi was one of the harshest, most tear-jerking moments in cinema history. Following the shot of a rifle that still haunts many of our dreams, the cute little baby doe was left to fend for itself. While we never actually see Bambi's mom get hit, the loud shot and subsequent grief-filled scenes tell the story. But who took the shot? That question has never really been answered. One theory suggests that it was actually Gaston from Beauty and the Beast who pulled the trigger. If you think about it, this theory kind of adds up. Gaston was a prolific hunter with a reputation that he could shoot anything from anywhere. Want more proof? At the start of Beauty and the Beast, we see a young doe drinking water from a stream, looking eerily similar to Bambi. We also see a wall full of hunted animal heads in the tavern where Gaston frequents. Perhaps one of those heads used to belong to Bambi's mom. Hey, just because these are Disney theories doesn't mean some of them aren't dark. Jane is Belle's great-granddaughter. While all of these Disney movies are supposed to be standalone films that don't tie into one another, there's no denying the apparent web that's been weaved between them all. This is another prime example of Disney universes being combined. According to this theory, Jane from Tarzan is actually the great-granddaughter of Belle from Beauty and the Beast. For starters, they look exactly alike. You don't need a Maury paternity test to see the resemblance here. They even dress the same, both wearing yellow. Beyond their appearance, Jane could understand Tarzan. He was raised by animals and didn't speak any fluent English, yet she was able to communicate with him. Much like Belle was able to communicate with the Beast. Not only can they both communicate with beast-like humans, but they appear to have similar taste in men. Finally, the piece that ties this all together is an otherwise unimportant moment in Tarzan when we see the tea set from Beauty and the Beast. Either they happened to shop at the same antique tea set shop, or this was an heirloom passed down to Jane. Aladdin takes place in a post-apocalyptic future. It's long been assumed that Aladdin took place centuries ago, but this theory suggests that the story doesn't even take place in the past. It's actually in the future. There's quite a bit of information that points to Aladdin actually taking place in a post-apocalyptic future, long after conventional modern society is broken down. When Genie comes out of the lamp, he talks about being imprisoned in there for 10,000 years. However, he also calls Aladdin's fashion sense so 3rd century, and does impersonations of 20th century celebrities like Arnold Schwarzenegger and Jack Nicholson. If Genie was around during the 1980s, when those stars were pumping out movies, then simple math would mean Aladdin takes place 10,000 years later. It might take place sometime around the year 10,000. Need more proof? In the Aladdin video game that was released in 1992, there was a modern stop sign buried in the sand. If this was the past, then explain that one. The prince is death. While that header may sound more like a death metal song, it's actually a pretty interesting theory about Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Yes, these are technically kids' movies we're discussing, but there are absolutely some dark, cryptic underlying messages here. This theory suggests that the prince who seemingly saves Snow White is actually the personification of death. The apple that was given to Snow White that puts her into the apple-induced coma was actually a lot stronger than originally anticipated. Rather than the prince showing up, giving her a smooch and waking her up, the reality of the situation is a lot worse. The prince is, in fact, the personification of death who comes to take Snow White away with him. He gives her a kiss, wakes her up, and takes her to the afterlife. He even gives her a chance to say goodbye to her friends, the dwarves, before she leaves on an eerily symbolic white horse. Mythology buffs out there will notice that her white horse looks just like the white horse that belonged to Death, one of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. Peter Pan is the angel of death. There's a surprising amount of death-related theories around these beloved Disney classics. This one suggests that Peter Pan is, in fact, the angel of death. What is it with these fans and these death theories? If you think about it though, this one makes a surprising amount of sense, in the most depressing kind of way. The theory is that Peter Pan takes deceased children to the afterlife, aka Neverland. It would explain why nobody ages or grows up there. Everybody always remains a kid. It explains the Lost Boys and why they remain the same forever, because you don't age in the afterlife. The thing that really drives this theory home is the fact that J.M. Barrie, the original author of the story, left ownership of it to a children's hospital. It was specifically used to help terminally ill children cope with the idea of moving on to the afterlife. No, I'm not crying. You're crying. Carl was dead the whole time. Yep. Only a couple more death theories and we are in the clear, folks. This one suggests that Carl from the movie Up was actually dead the entire time. No, not in a Sixth Sense I see dead people kind of way, but more like the entire movie was a metaphor for the afterlife. According to this theory, Carl dies peacefully in his sleep right around the beginning of the movie, after being notified that he needs to move. Russell shows up, symbolizing his guardian angel who has taken the form of the child that he and Ellie never had. Russell is trying to get his final merit badge from the Scouts, which is, in a way, like an angel trying to get their wings. When it comes to metaphors, it doesn't get any less subtle than a man's house literally floating away into the sky. That was Carl ascending to heaven, and the rest of the movie is a not-so-literal interpretation of one man's conscience and soul. Ariel's mother was killed by Captain Hook. Okay, last death-related one, I swear. I don't know what it is about these Disney movies and death theories, but we could make an entire video based solely on that. We probably shouldn't though, because it would be incredibly depressing. This theory suggests there's a correlation between the Little Mermaid and Captain Hook. If you look carefully, one of the mermaids in Neverland looks an awful lot like Ariel. They even both have the same signature red hair. If you'll recall, in the Little Mermaid prequel, we learned that Ariel's mother, Athena, had her life taken by pirates. Her father, Triton, hates humans as a result of what they did to his wife. We know it was a pirate who was responsible, but we never learned their name. So if we're to believe that Neverland is, in fact, the afterlife according to a previous theory, then it would explain how and why Ariel's mother can be seen chilling there. She even knows Peter by name. Furthermore, she has a stark fear of Captain Hook and flees the scene when he arrives. It's almost as if she had some sort of previous trauma involving him. She reacts to hearing the name Captain Hook the same way I react to hearing my ex-girlfriend. Yeah, just kidding. She is a lovely person and I wish her all the best. Boo grew up to be a witch. Last but not least, perhaps the most mind-blowing theory out there is that Boo from Monsters Inc. grew up to be the witch in Brave. Not only is it mind-blowing, but it might also be the most believable. In Brave, we're introduced to the witch in her shed. Woodworking shop. If you look carefully, there's a small wood carving of Sully from Monsters Inc. That's odd. While many just chalk this up to a silly shout-out, as these movies often like to do, it's actually more than that. Without getting into too much detail, this theory ties into a much larger Pixar universe theory that emphasizes the importance of memories. This Boo theory in particular suggests that she figured out time travel and used it to go back to the past so she could keep Sully's memory alive and keep him living in the future. This way her future self can meet him an infinite number of times. It's essentially a time loop. Doctor Strange would be so proud. Aside from the Sully wood carving, the witch also has a carving on her table of the Pizza Planet truck. A fuzzy monster picture is one thing, but a pizza delivery truck in a time before cars even existed? Nuh-uh. That seems a bit too far-fetched for me. After all, this is a world where magic exists, so a bit of time travel is not all that out of the realm of possibility. Well, those are the wildest Disney theories we could uncover. What about you? Dust off the magnifying glass and let us know if you've uncovered any other mind-blowing Disney theory. We'd love to hear what you got for us. Before you go though, do us a favor and hit that thumbs up button. Also, subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon to be notified when we release exciting new content for you. Until next time, you've been watching The Binger.